Hey friendo, Steve here. Welcome back to the channel. It's time for another Ask Wrestle Juice. You guys left a bunch of great questions. I'm going to get to them this week and next week, and then I'll post up a new thread on the community tab right here at Wrestle Juice. Before we get started, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Let's jump into this from Funky Phil. He says, how much longer of a shelf life do you think deathmatch wrestling has? Do you think there will still be a deathmatch scene in the next few decades, or do you think it'll eventually die through a lack of fan interest or a major incident or injury gaining public attention? He says he personally enjoys death matches, but he understands why people don't like them. Doesn't blame anybody for not wanting them around. I go through sort of phases where I'm into or I'm interested in death matches, and then I go through phases where I get really squeamish when presented with a death match. I think at some point I was like, yeah, how can they keep on upping the stakes? But I kind of feel like if you go back, 10, 15 years, CZW, Necro Butcher type stuff, I feel like they took the sort of, or even going back to like the Turn of the Death a couple of years ago when Nick Gage basically died and then came back to life. I feel like everything that, or even FMW, everything that could be done from a physical standpoint in deathmatch wrestling has pretty much been done. I feel like what GCW, for example, right now is presenting is it's not different from a technical standpoint, or not too different from a technical standpoint from what we saw back in the day. You have the basics, you have the light tube stuff, you've got the glass panes, you've got falling from high distances through things like doors and whatnot. However, the one thing that GCW has managed to do to keep it relevant is but just keep the stories fresh. I feel like when you get things like Nick Gage versus Matt Cardona, for example, that's something fresh. That's something new. The characters, the personalities involved are all people that, the ones that are successful anyways, are people that the crowd have really bought into. And so it's not necessarily, can you top the last thing? Because yeah, at that point, somebody's just going to straight up die. It's going to be a literal death match. It becomes, how will these people get creative with the conventions of a death match? Which is, no different than regular pro wrestling or standard non-deathmatch pro wrestling. It's all the moves are out there pretty much. You do have some people that are a bit more innovative in regular pro wrestling, like Ninja Mac, for example, or Kid Drago. But I feel like in pro wrestling, it's all about the stories and it's about the characters. That's what it's all about. And in deathmatch wrestling, I feel like it's similar. It's about the stories and it's about the personalities. And as long as those continue to be innovative, and as long as those continue to translate and draw a connection with the crowd, deathmatch wrestling won't be going anywhere. I think it'll be fine for a while. Like I said, I personally appreciate deathmatch wrestling for what it is. I'm not always into it, but sometimes I'll come back around to it. I never want to see people get hurt, though. Sometimes I get more squeamish because I'm old. Next, Aiden Wrestling asks, do you think AEW should have Rampage on a regular time frame, like maybe a different day of the week at 8 p.m.? The problem is that time slot, that thing that they're at, that's kind of probably the best they could do. I'm kind of curious as to why, or if they didn't push for something like Saturday at 6:05, if you want a true throwback to what they used to do with NWA, with WCW. That being said, I would imagine Tony Khan's a smart guy. If there was a better time frame out there, he would have gone after that. There is tremendous, besides WWE programming, there is, of course, NHL deals that TNT, that Turner has. And so I understand why he couldn't put it at a different time, a different slot. That's why I feel like Rampage is just going to continue to be the kind of thing where if they want to pop a rating, they can. But I would imagine if the rumor is true that Turner was happy with 500,000 total viewership on Wednesday's primetime for Dynamite, they'd have to be happy with around 400 to 500 to 600,000 for Rampage on a Friday night. It does make it less desirable viewing, although Brandon Thurston from WrestleNomics did say that it has a 25% jump in when you take into consideration DVR metrics. So more people are actually watching it. They're just not being reported in the normal rating system that's used online. So it's still, I would think, because Turner's not paying a lot of money for it, and it still gets the ratings that anything else probably would do much worse at, they're probably happy with the way Rampage is performing. So there you go. White Brownie says, obviously we know you care a lot about storytelling and wrestling when it comes to watching AEW and WWE, but for non-wrestling fans, what do you think these two companies could do to grasp their attention? More storytelling or more action? I do feel like in order to, if you want to start approaching the kind of reach, the kind of mainstream attention that wrestling used to have in 2021, 2022, when there is a lot more competition, there's a lot more forms of entertainment, there's any number of apps on your phone that can steal away competition. I feel like in order for them to do that, it's a much steeper climb these days. AEW or WWE needs to have that sort of NWO-esque story that really brings people back. For the longest time, WCW, when they were competing with WWE back in 94, 95, they were just taking names that were previously with WWE and sort of giving them a fresh coat of paint and appealing to people who had fallen out of wrestling, because those big stars were still, the attempt was being made in WWE in 94, 95 to build up new stars. WCW was like, well, they've got name value, let's see. And they succeeded with that, but they didn't really cross over into major success until the NWO. And exactly what that story would be for AEW, I don't know. You would need something like what I think there's a question over here a little bit later on. Should AEW try to sign John Cena? And I think it would be that kind of thing. Let's see here. Yeah, Adam asks, it was just Adam, said, do you think AEW should try to go after John Cena like WCW did with Hulk Hogan in 94? Yes, of course they should. They're not going to be able to, because he already has a fully fledged Hollywood career. Why would he go to AEW when he knows he can have the biggest platform in WWE? The difference between Cena and Hulk Hogan was Hulk Hogan had that shitty Thunder in Paradise show, and he probably knew that Hollywood wasn't going to be the place for him. And so why not take a huge payday? And that was a huge payday in 1994 with WCW. With John Cena, the dude's already making a mint in Hollywood. He's got a long career out there ahead of him and nothing but big things. Why would he do anything less than go to WWE? So there's no way AEW could pull John Cena, but should they try? Sure. I mean, that could be, he's the only guy that would be sort of like a Hogan-esque character for AEW in a good way, not a bad way. R. Griff Giants asks, after Braun Breaker inevitably beats Ciampa for the NXT title at New Year's Evil, which I do think is going to happen, who do you see being the next 4 NXT champions, similar to your thoughts on the next 4 AEW champions video? This is a bit more difficult because of the newness of 2.0, but if I had to guess, I would say the guy that's going to take it off Braun Breaker is probably going to be Joe Gacy. After him, I could see a guy like Solo Sikoa taking it off of him, and then after him, maybe a Grayson Waller. They seem to really like that guy. Irad Flores says, where do you see pro wrestling as an industry in 20 years? Go as big picture or focus perspective as you like. That is far too long of a time to consider where pro wrestling is going to be. If you look back 20 years ago is when Chris Jericho won the unified the championships against Rock and Austin in the same night. So much has happened since then. I hope AEW is still around. WWE will almost certainly still be around. It will look a lot different because barring cryogenics, Vince McMahon's going to be gone. So I don't know where it's going to be. The indie ranks are awesome. And I think there's still probably some room for pro wrestling in the mainstream, even with what we have right now. But everything has a ceiling. Everything has a limit. Michael Carlson says, I'm not a fan of multi-man matches, and especially when it comes to title matches. But after watching some ECW pay-per-views, I truly believe that three-way dances could make a comeback and make three-way title matches feel logical. The elimination aspect of a three-way dance allows champions to get pinned or be pinned What do you think about this idea of three-way dances making a comeback? So three-way dances are different from triple threat matches. You still have three people, but it's elimination thing. So one guy gets eliminated, pin, submission, whatever, and then you're left with two guys and they fight for the title, which is a great concept because, everybody has to be pinned except for the winner, or submitted. I don't know. I mean, I like the concept of it. I like that ECW used to do that. There doesn't seem to be any rush for those to come back. I don't remember the last time I saw one of those matches actually happen. Certainly not in mainstream wrestling. It's a cool concept, but you know how it is, like, especially with Vince, if it's not on his radar, he's not going to do it. So I wouldn't get my hopes up over it returning, but it's a cool concept. I really like the idea of that match. It's just been a long time since we've seen them. Jeremy Bauman says, do you think WWE's platform, this is a great question, WWE's platform of paying $9.99 a month for pay-per-views has hurt other companies' profits? I, for one, can't see myself paying $50 for a pay-per-view anymore. He says, for example, AEW is averaging 100 to 110,000 buys per pay-per-view, but prior to the WWE Network, WWE is averaging 200,000 pay-per-view buys. Yes, but once again, WWE is a company that is like 10 times the size of AEW. AEW is still new, and I believe, I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure AEW has grown in size with every pay-per-view they've done. I think every pay-per-view they've done has either been on par or better than the previous one. I could be wrong about that, but I thought that was the case. I don't know if there's a ceiling to this AEW and their buys. They do need to establish one show as their WrestleMania. They might want to add some spectacle to All Out next year. Given how big it was this year, given how that seems to be their WrestleMania, 2022 might be the year where come September, they might try to make a bigger deal about All Out, get more eyes on their product. And so you can start looking at 200,000 pay-per-view buys. But I think there's definitely something to be said for WWE undervaluing or devaluing the price of their product. I mean, getting 100,000 people to pay $50 for a pay-per-view is obviously no small feat for AEW. But you might ask the question, had that never changed, would that be more, or would that, I don't know. I don't know if you'd get more people paying for that. I don't know. But certainly if there is a shift in the market and what people are used to paying is too high, then it stands to reason that maybe that's limiting some companies' ability to do that. So that's a great question. I honestly don't know, because that has been happening for such a long time now. I think it's a good question. Let's see here. Lick asks, what do you think are the most likely to be the big surprises to happen at Winter is Coming or the big AEW shows, such as a debut or title change? I feel like we're definitely going to get the debut of Kyle O'Reilly. I do not think we're going to get a title change, because Cody's going to get the title 2 weeks later at Christmas, the TNT title. I do not think for a second Danielson has any chance of beating Hangman Page. I don't think that's going to happen at all. I think you'd severely undercut Hangman Page if you have Danielson beat him one-on-one. I think that'd be a bad move. So yeah, I think that you might see Kyler. There might be a big story beat, but I do feel like, last year's Winter is Coming with the title change happening there. I think that that's probably not going to happen. I don't think anything big like that is going to happen. They sort of set the bar really high there, and I don't think there's any way they can beat that. So I feel like, just maybe a cool story beat or the debut of Kyle O'Reilly. That could be cool. I mean, maybe if Keith Lee can get out of his 90-day with WWE, maybe a Keith Lee debut could be a big deal. Lindsay B says, what are your thoughts on Kevin Owens staying in WWE? He's known to be a family man and the big paychecks are enticing, but do you think WWE would make Cesaro-like promises to keep him and then let him fall to the wayside? I think Kevin Owens is probably, and she also asked, would AEW even pay him enough? WWE has you're right on everything there in terms of Kevin Owens being a family person. As a family man myself, I understand security means a lot. That being said, I think, and AEW has been spending a lot of money on talent lately. I think he probably understands that there is an economic path for him. Number one, he's made a ton of money in WWE already. He's probably a pretty smart guy, and he's been able to stash a lot of that money. That's a smart move. So the question becomes, as a family man, something I appreciate as well, It's being able to spend time with my family, having the freedom to do that. If he goes to AEW and for a reasonable amount of money, he's able to spend 1 day a week doing AEW, and then he gets to go home for the rest of the week, as opposed to WWE, where he's on the road for a lot of the time, a much busier schedule. I kind of feel like there's a benefit there for a family man that might outweigh just simple money. Money will come, money you can get. Time with your family, especially as he sees his kids growing up, and much of the time he's not able to be there. I kind of feel like leaving some money on the table in order to spend that time with your family, that's kind of a priceless commodity right there. Like, you can't really put a price on that, I feel. I think that dude knows he could sell a ton of merch. He can still get a good payday in AEW. All sorts of great matches there. He's got great friends there. But I don't know what he feels his experience in WWE is. Sometimes I look at him when he comes out and it's like, oh, wow, he's really engaged. And sometimes it's like, man, this guy clearly understands that they're not using him to his fullest potential. I say he goes to AEW. I understand paychecks are one thing. Money's not everything, though, especially for a family guy. For a family guy, maybe seeing his family might mean more to him. Simtelabfon, I hope I said that name right, says, should AEW have a second show or brand like SmackDown? They sometimes struggle to showcase everyone because of how big their roster is. No, because there's no where. Where are they going to do that? How are they going to do that? There's no other day of the week or time slot they could have. Otherwise, they'd have it. And if they did that, I don't know. I'm not a fan of it. I think that they have got, everybody there seems happy. I think maybe they could introduce a trios title, a mid-card women's title, something like that. But those episodes of Dynamite and Rampage, they just boom, boom, boom. They move. And so everybody seems to get their little bit in. And the nobody's just sort of stuck in limbo for, X amount of months. It seems like the environment there, even if you're doing less than maybe you were doing in WWE, you might be a bit happier because you feel like you're being used, even if it's in a smaller way. You're not just stuck in limbo. So I don't know. I feel like I would not want to see AEW have a second brand. I'm not really huge on the brand split in the first place in WWE. And I don't even really think WWE needs it. Krispy Kreme says Danielson recently spoke about starting a stable in AEW and mentioned Daniel Garcia as someone to watch. Who else do you think would be a good fit for Brian's potential group? Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish. You got Red Dragon, American Dragon, and then Red Death with Daniel Garcia. Fits perfectly. It fits perfectly. That's going to do it. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We're going to answer more of these questions next week. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Till next time, watch one of these other videos. I'll see you over there. You can check out this one. You can check out this one right here. This one. There you go.